Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Jim and Rob Overanalyze Movies, the video podcast for a couple of guys who love to talk about movies as much as they love watching them, and perhaps a little more. Today, we're going to be looking at A Christmas Story Christmas sequel, 1 in 8 of part of the Parker family saga, but really a sequel to A Christmas Story, which we did look at last week, and I'll put a link up here for it. Anyway, here's the log line from IMDb. A Christmas Story Christmas follows the now adult Ralphie as he returns to the house on Cleveland Street to give his kids a magical Christmas like the one he had as a child, reconnecting with childhood friends, and reconciling the passing of his old man. Yeah, that's basically the gag. He's grown up into a bit of maybe a little bit of a doofus, reminiscent of Clark Griswold. He wants to be a famous writer. But he also wants to provide his kids with that perfect Christmas. He wants to get published. He wants to... he wants many things. This movie wants many things. Of course, over the course of a Christmas visit home, he also needs to write his father's obituary. And yeah, that's basically the setup for this flick. Anyway, it was directed by Clay Kaytis of Angry Birds fame, written by Nick Schenk and Clay Kaytis, based on a story by Nick Schenk and Peter Billingsley. He's also one of the producers. Stars, of course, Peter Billingsley, reprising his role in the original as Ralphie. Julie Haggerty plays Ralphie's mom, Mrs. Parker, and Aaron Hayes plays Ralphie's wife, Sandy. Ian Petrella, Scott Schwartz, R.D. Robb, Zach Ward, and Yano Anaya also reprise their roles from the original, while River Drosh and Juliana Lane play Ralphie and Sandy's son. I believe it's, Mark and Julie, respectively. Anyway, let's get into the social nutrition checklist. Would this film get a reframe stamp? No, it would not. Is it union made? As a matter of fact, it is. Produced in Hungary, or produced in Sofia, Bulgaria. That's where it was made. But yeah, it's got the IA stamp right at the end. And all I'm thinking is well, apparently you can be IA and in Europe, in Eastern Europe, no less. Anyway, what else? Does it pass the Bechdel test? As a matter of fact, it does in a couple of moments that are really quite nice. And last but certainly not least, is this a class-conscious film? No, it is not. No, it's not that movie. Anyway, historicity. This is one... You know what? This is one Jim and I will talk about later when we're talking about the meaning and perhaps the missed opportunities. But unlike A Christmas Story, where there's a deep connection to the original writer of the book it's based on, and his BS, this has none of that. So, watch A Christmas Story, compare it to this, and make your own judgment on how accurate it was. Got some good, good 70s costume design. I guess that's history. Anyway, with that out of the way, I think it is time to introduce my co-host with the most, Mr. Jim Chaboyko. Hello, you Ukrainian star.
Hello, a Ukrainian guy in the French Quarter.
How you doing, my friend?
Good, yeah. The winter's descended upon us, but we got a blast of
winter,
winter
yeah.
finally, a true winter. Still, we're a bit warmer than Alberta and Saskatchewan, but it's not too bad. I got a shovel after this, I think. But yeah, nothing like some late night shoveling to destroy the neighbor's sleep. But it's got to be done.
Yeah.
So, how are you doing?
Pretty damn good, actually.
Before we get started, I just wanted to bring up really briefly, Sight and Sound is an English film magazine, and every 10 years or so they come out with their, they do a whole poll. They do it fair. I don't know if you can call it scientifically, but they talk to directors and actors and all kinds of people, and they ask them what their 10 favorite movies are, and then they weight them, and then they come up with a list of the 100 best movies of all time. And the results change, which is probably a good thing, but the results change from time to time, and so a lot of this has been coming out on Twitter and that sort of thing. I'm just wondering, it's a big ask to. I mean, what is the difference between your own favorite movies and what you think are the best movies? I tried to. Last night, it was about 2 a.m, and I just wanted to put this out there. I tried to come up with my own list of the 10 that I thought had the most effect on me. And I was trying to make the distinction between emotional effect and really good directing or what have you. And it's tricky. Holy cow, just to come up with 10. So I went back. I thought, I'll take 5 minutes and do this list. About a half an hour later, I was still on it. I'm like, oh, Wings of Desire, no. Moana, no. I already have WALL-E, oh. But anyway, so that might be a fun exercise for you folks out there, just to try it. If you were asked by Sight and Sound to come up with your own list of 10, that might be a kind of a neat exercise, I think.
No, that's a great idea, Jim.
Yeah, and the only other thing I'll say about this is what a tricky ask, because you're asking somebody to go back. It's almost like the people who list all the Marvel movies. I really think you should probably only do it when you watch all 30 of them in the same week, if you can manage that, and then come up, because you're relying on memory. I mean, it would be an exercise in subjectivity, I think. I mean, at what point in your life you see something, what kind of, I remember seeing the Michael Caine, Laurence Olivier Death Trap and thinking it was like, oh, the greatest thing that I'd ever seen before, but I was 12. So it's, was I just watching something rehashed, and it was just new to me? And then there's the other question is that, if I don't have Citizen Kane on my list, am I a bad film reviewer? That kind of thing. And, I should, and then there's those little pragmatic deals you make with yourself.
Does this plate of visual media have all the appropriate food groups?
Yeah. And then you're thinking, then you get to I should do this so I don't look like an idiot or something like that. Yeah. But some of the people out there, like I believe the director for RRR just said, love Raiders of the Lost Ark, love Jaws, love Gladiator. Like they're all these big sort of showpiecey kind of movies and stuff. So unapologetically.
Oh, yeah.
And then other people were more sort of, they had some quieter movies on that as well. I'm not saying that they're not genuine choices, but a tricky ask. You end up sort of making bargains with yourself, and if I take out one documentary, I'll put in anyway. Yeah. So it's kind of an interesting.
I think it's almost it's a cool exercise, and this is the time of year, so I'm not offended by these activities, and it can be a great exercise, but I think it's almost no list survives a second look. Mm-hmm. I mean, you do it a week later, you're looking at it, it's like, I can't believe I missed X. Or really, why is at 9 while that's at 7? It is forever subject to review and revision. Never mind if you never saw a new movie again, because new movies change that list retroactively.
They do,
All right, well, that's a great challenge, folks. We'd love to hear what your list is. Put it down in the comments, send us an email, make sure there's some tweet at us. I'll put some links Of course, there's links to Jim and I on Twitter, etc., in the description. But hopefully, I'll have something on the screen here. We'll find out. All right, Jim. Let's get into the spoiler zone, and and let's jump right into story. Although I may rant about craft again. You and I have had subsequent conversations about this, but. I you know what, Jim? I'm going to start by maybe a little bit of a cheap shot on this flick. I'm like, wow, in some ways, this movie is a great thing to watch. It only makes me appreciate A Christmas Story all the more. That said, what was your take on this story and how it was told?
Yeah, the first one, which we just reviewed last week, and you can go into our archives and check it out.
I'll make sure that there's something above.
Certainly. That a little bit too much of the same tone, I think, in this one. Like, we just had watched the previous one last week, and it's a different story. The father is no longer there. He has just passed away in the story, whereas Darren McGavin, actually the actor, passed away a bunch of years ago.
2006, I want to say. But continue. Sorry.
Yeah. So it's been a while. So this is sort of informed by a lot of this movie is informed by his memory. But it's a lot of the same tone, I felt, and a lot of the same beats, and it's maybe not fully its own movie compared to the first one, I think. Yeah, we'll get into it a little bit later because there's a question that you posed to me earlier. But I thought I felt like I was treading a lot of the same ground. Like I was maybe not watching the entirely the same movie this week as we did last week, but real similar facsimile without it being its own sort of, I think, standalone film. How about you?
It's interesting. I'd actually argue that this. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think we both agreed that one of the strengths of A Christmas Story was its unnostalgic tone. It's as realistic as a movie seen from a child's eyes can be. And that, let's say that voiceover of, that was, that's the way I had my head up my ass. I was 8,
Yeah.
Whereas this, I mean, honestly, I'm like, I think it's almost like it's like 8 different movies. There are more than hints of It's a Wonderful Life. There's also that, I mean, and actually, for folks who don't know, I have been paid to write things. One of my first paid writing gigs was from the guy next to me, Mr. Jim Chavoyko. But you, as an actual professional writer, like there's the hero as I want to be a writer, and it's like, I'm okay. And it also goes to some of those classic standard. There's even hints of Clark Griswold, and I'm going to make this a great Christmas for my children and for the family, and circumstances interfere with that. And so there's that kind of more standard, or even prosaic American Christmas movie. Like in many respects, this would be fine on Hallmark, or who knows, even Hallmark might have went, Well, you got that Christmas Story thing in there. So, okay, well, hey, listen to that. I think that's the Winnipeg Police Service helicopter just outside your window.
It's just Santa's helicopter is just hovering above St. Boniface. Nice. I have my window open a little bit for some fresh air. I'll maybe close it if it sticks around, if it's hunting down an unsub or something. But Yeah, no, I get it. It's yeah, it's a tricky thing to sort of go back to that well. And you know, there's a few other questions I had. Uh, there's the whole notion of him taking over for his father, but does Peter Billingsley, does he have that same? I sort of miss Darren McGavin in this one, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like that, and of course his character's dead and that kind of thing. But that sort of kookiness that I think is kind of missing as well. So then you have a straight guy trying to do the kooky harried
Yeah.
father, which I think is sort of a tricky ask for
And is
Mr.
also
Billingsley.
like kind of like in some ways the parents in this movie are almost well, again, back to a more, let's say, a more typical Christmas movie, the parents just wanting everything for the children. That was never the impression I got in A Christmas Story.
Yeah.
Not to say, in no time did you think that the parents didn't love the children, didn't love Ralphie, but you also didn't think their whole lives rose and sat on their children's immediate wines, etc. There were other things to do, including fighting with the that arch nemesis, the furnace. They had lives and other things going on, and a very much an approach to child rearing, which kind of reminds me of being similar age in the 70s, which this film is set, of, a parent, maybe loving you, but certainly not thinking your immediate whine or disappointments are top of their list to deal with. There's a lot more suck it up, and that I kind of, I sort of missed that.
I don't watch every movie that we do with Carla, my wife, but I did with her, and I just want to share this quote from her that I wrote down for posterity. This is just after the star fell off the tree, shattered to the ground, and the little girl started crying. What a bunch of fucking high maintenance babies.
Yes.
Yeah. And you ideally you want to. It's not that kind of movie where you make have unsympathetic children. It's an effort to make the children sympathetic, but their kind of whinging is a bit
and
much.
the other thing, that almost I'm leery of using. You get caught up in that American culture war interpretation. But at the same time, it's like, you know what? Children's, well, life is disappointment. You're learning some of it now. That managing their feelings, to the exclusion of reality, but also I'm wondering, Jim, is it just me? Or did you and Carla, or you or Carla, kind of note the adults are like less adult, and the children, they have quips. This is child labor. They're, well, this sucks. They like just and also their observations are very American sitcom, and they're a little more adult. And another thing I missed, I think you watch these back to back, as we basically have done, and it's like, I really miss the kids behaving like kids and the adults behaving like adults, because you kind of don't see that. That isn't to say that adults now or 50 years ago or even 100 years ago are like, can get wrapped up in trying to give their children something they feel they had or didn't have.
Yeah.
And that could have been handled, But this one, it's like, I yeah, to the exclusion of all else seems to be.
Yeah, there was a scene, and just as you're talking now, it sort of reminded me, the way the daughter was acting was that when she met Santa, she had that lightning round of questions from him, and I was thinking, what does this
Which was
remind me
done
of?
so much better in Uncle Buck.
Yes, I
Oh,
just thought
damn
of
it.
that just now.
Well, so did I.
Yeah.
As soon as you're right.
Yeah.
Uncle Buck. Now that was bang on.
Yeah. Yeah, and different and a different age, and that it's 20 years later or whatever in the 1980s, but or set in the 1980s. But this is a new movie, so is that sort of a derivative nod, as you're saying, references to It's a Wonderful Life and that sort of thing? That seems to be a definite takeaway from Uncle Buck, but or an ode. I'll say it's an ode.
Well, and what did you think of, and this may be like part of the problem is almost like this story that as they were writing this movie, they couldn't quite come up with, okay, what is this really going to be about? And what kind of Christmas movie are we going to make? Brian, DMG, Dragon Movie Guy, put this question on my Facebook post talking about this tonight's show. He says, my question, was the nostalgia trip with callbacks, all in caps, enough? Or does the lack of new meat on the bones for the story disappoint? Like a deflated balloon. And I think DMG in some ways is bang on. Like there's these standard callbacks, that it's like, oh, okay, well, I get why you're doing that, but you're not it's always tough with the callback, right? I mean,
yeah. Yeah, I mean, is he referring to those cut, like those actual scenes from the movie that were sort of placed in there?
I mean, there's so many callbacks to the Double Dog Daria. That whole sequence, is like a dull callback.
Yeah.
I was wondering his weird fantasy kind of views of some things. He's drifting off in a meeting. It was like, what? And of course, I got to ask Jim, having pitched your own projects and, made a living writing. Have you ever just bugged anyone for a personal meeting?
Yeah, not so well. I sort of welcome to our weekly segment. That's not how newspapers work. That's kind of what I thought. It's not as bad as the depiction of the publishing world in Elf. That was the worst. There were so many things wrong with James Caan not caring that half didn't they take 2 pages off the end of one story, and they're like, oh, we got to get this script in by Boxing Day or whatever it was. It just, it's not, and he would never get a call back on Christmas. I mean, it's a little less. The newspaper that he opens up has no writing on the inside, on the second page. Like, there's no writing. Like, he's holding it up to the light. You'd think that would be I was watching.
I'm impressed that it was a unionized movie shot in Bulgaria. That right there, I was like,
yes,
kind of.
That's
like,
another.
You know what? That slipped through while they were able to make so many outdoor scenes look like almost picture perfect, matching the original film. Not the cinematography or anything, but the physical matching is just a testament to the universality of top tier craft workers. There's set decorators.
Well, it makes me
on their game.
I was thinking that whole ramp, is that a former sort of like?
Oh, it looked like
actual ski jump training thing.
You know what it
or,
reminded me
maybe
of,
they
Jim?
built it for the
They
movie.
built the end for the movie. And they put the fence around it and all that other BS. But that's at St. Vital Park right now. You took your kids on one of those things. Like, I mean, that's every toboggan, structure at a City of Winnipeg park, in the 80s, and then they just had to slap a scoop on the other end so we can have adults behave like children. It's almost like they saw it. It's like, wow, this would have been a great gag in the first movie. Well, we can do it.
Yeah.
We'll just have grown-ass adults do it.
They'll all be drunk. But to get back to your original question, there's all kinds of oddness about, him, basically everything kind of shuts down around Christmas. It's not really that. I mean, I've written Christmas pieces in July. I mean, that's for magazines, right? That's for bi-monthly magazines. So, the calendar thing, it's especially around Christmas, isn't that, and for him to, I will say I did dig the Isaac Asimov, Frank Herbert, and Anne McCaffrey reference. And there was another writer too. Oh, Ray Bradbury. They mentioned Ray. So those were cool references. It very interesting. Him getting calls and already coming up with a syndication deal, like from a 5-minute phone
from
call.
a local
local guy.
He
set it up.
Like, I'm making this happen for you, boy. It's like, no.
Exactly. I guess my future's figured out. Wow. But again, way better than Elf, the publishing world on Elf. But that's not saying much. That's a pretty.
What
low
I'm
bar.
also going to say is, if that's all it has for it, and none of the other things that make Elf a Christmas classic, for a lot of people, not for me. I didn't really see it at that right time, in my head. But I do get it. There is magic in there, and perhaps that's something we should take a look at in one of our future Does It Hold Up? All right. Well, let me ask you this, Jim. Like, there was I did take some notes. There were some funny moments. Like, it had a sense of humor. Like, and at times, I got to admit, at times, like, there's, the moment, there's like little bits of magic, and there's this, it's the scene right after, like, even all the toys get stolen. So, this is a nice little moment where he's, well, I'll go work on my dad's obituary, kinda. And how did he put it? Like, like a lot of people have done it, ignore it and hope it goes away on its own. And I'm like, yeah, that's grown-ups do that. Like it was a real moment. But then the other extreme, it's like, is this a bribe? And I'm like, you're a publisher. What do you mean a bribe? Like, it's yes, I want you. I'm trying to entice you. You're not do you know what I mean? Like, it's like, he's not trying to slip $100 to a cop.
Exactly.
I mean, so there I laughed, but maybe not for the right reason. Did you have any moments where you're like, kind of, oh, there's something there, like a nice moment,
I liked. I did think it was kind of touching when they brought back the bully character of Scut, but
played by Zach Ward.
And, the whole
who sued the owners of the franchise twice.
Yeah, and was still asked back.
I love that.
And
it's like, hey, you're screwing with my money.
Yeah. Well, and they seem to be legitimate. Like, you're using my image on, tertiary products that without my permission, and I didn't get any.
All the respect
cut,
for
so.
for Mr. Ward. All the respect for Mr. Ward.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I did like. There was. It's watchable. It's probably a good family movie. It's pretty middle of the road, and it sort of comes together in the third act a little bit. The source of this is the source of the stories, or my telling them, anyways. But I liked when he got caught, I guess, by the policeman, who turns out to be our previous antagonist, the bully of the neighborhood, and he turns out to have turned
him around,
even though he is.
It's one of the many,
sinister,
let's say, third act miracles Ralphie experiences.
But then again, he sort of plays with him a bit and sort of makes it a little more sinister than he's willing to let on. Initially, he didn't say, "I'm bringing you home." He goes, "All right," and wait, you're driving past the police station, and a cab, all cops are bullies. No, I'm just kidding, but it was kind of an interesting.
That would
thing.
probably have been a little more true to life. It's like, oh, the bully, the high school bully, the junior, the school, the playground bully is now a cop. That's like a natural progression, Anyway, sorry, continue.
Yeah, no, that's exactly sort of what I was getting at. As you look at some of the timely stuff, and not every policeman, of course, but it's a little bit close to the bone. That I think, So but back his to story, his redemption story, and is thanking him for thanking Ralphie for turning it around. I thought was actually kind of
had a little moment there. Yeah, what was there for you? Like I've mentioned a couple of tropes. Another one that just drives me nuts. I mean, the woman who plays, what is her name now? Oh my goodness. Bear with me, my friend.
Yeah, sure.
Holy crap. Okay, she plays Sandy.
Sandy?
Erin Hayes. Geez, Ralphie, you're playing out of your shoes to, get involved with Sandy there. But there's that kind of, okay, well, we got to give her some weakness. Otherwise, no one will believe that Ralphie, this borderline Clark Griswold, is, married a Sandy. You're stuck wondering, boy, what was he like when he was younger? It's certainly not what he's like now. And then they give that sort of, oh, she's a klutz. You know, and it's a trope that drives me nuts. What did you like? Was there any tropes that you're like kind of? I'm sick of seeing that in a film.
I mean, a little bit of the kids when they first introduced the child from next door, one of the Bumpkus kids, kids, I think. Bumpus, what's their last name? He was gonna hawk a loogie and then he ended up swallowing. And I thought, oh, they're introducing another kind of bully or something like that. I like how they handled the kids on the snowmobile. As little interaction as possible. You didn't really have to set anything up. They were just terrorizing the neighborhood by driving around, knocking down snowmen. And I thought their fate was actually kind of bloodthirsty, but kind of, I mean, they could have been killed seriously, but anyway. But yeah, I sort of thought, oh, here we go with the introduction of the bully. And that part didn't feel so inspired. The kid eventually fell in with them. Kind of, it wasn't really given that much attention, but I sort of, I kind of dreaded going forward from that. It ended up being nothing, but
even that idea of to turn the Bumpuses, although apparently, because there's this is only the 8th in the whole Parker family saga. I will put a link to a great that kind of covers them all. Apparently, there are shows, Masterpiece Theater, I think, shows predating A Christmas Story that were based on the same Gene Shepherd book and other stories he did. Anyway, so I'll post a link there.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like, wow, I didn't know that happened. Some actually well reviewed, like many others. It's like, well, who asked for this?
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, Jim. Before we kick over into meaning, which we should, what are your top 3 missed opportunities? I'll start if that's cool with you. I think,
go ahead.
Casseroles, like that could have been a great running gag and an opportunity to make this movie its own movie instead of trying, like, so many callbacks. Do something with it. They kind of did, but they really didn't. I mean, you could have had like whole little chapters or the 7 days of casseroles or something, right? Again, the describing Sandy as an aficionado, there is a nice bit of dialogue or voiceover. How do you, but not a dilettante, but the aficionado, my wife, and it's like, and who knows, they may have even pulled it out of one of Gene Shepherd's books. And it's like that there's an opportunity. They're going to go with, like, they literally undercut it right away with her falling flat on her ass and putting her in, wrapping up her ankle and putting her in crutches. And it's like, what? Like, well, don't drive. Oh no, right around that corner, fireworks factory. Oh, right on. So when are we go?
Yeah.
We're not even going there.
No skating
set piece. No playing with that idea of an aficionado. No, nothing. And then last but certainly not least, I think one of the genius, why it works in A Christmas Story, that there's no social commentary, that there's like, I think we see 2 black kids and they're at school and there's no interaction, is partly when it's set, partly it's the child's experience. So there is no references to, hey, we just went through the 30s, or wow, war winds. The winds of war were blowing in 1940 United States of America. Here, though, it's a grown-ass adult narrating it. Korea comes up, but Vietnam, not once. Fact that American economic hegemony, like you had mentioned before we started the show about how this town, Gary, Indiana, right next door, like you've got what will soon be part of a Rust Belt, in another 10 years, and nothing, not even a little note to how the world has changed, because it is an adult's perspective on his life right then. So that's a huge missed opportunity to bring in some of those themes, like, again, to make the movie its own. That doesn't mean a total tonal shift. I would actually say that's more in keeping with the tone of the original movie, to be less rose-colored, overly sentimental, overly nostalgic, that to be a little more, just as the first movie was real about what a kid actually cares about, this could have been real about, well, I'm a grown-ass adult, and yes, I care about my kids, but I'm also looking at them going, well, at least I won't have to go to Vietnam. Hey, we're just getting out of it. Or I voted for Nixon 'cause, he said he'd get us out of the war, you know, which, you know, terrible thing to give Nixon credit for. But he kind of did in a weird way.
Yeah.
Kind of. All right. Anyway, what
in a sweaty way.
In a sweaty, I'm going to break into the offices of my political opponents and
who I'm already handily beating. I'll just make I want to win by 100%, not 90. But
what do you think what were your 3 greatest missed opportunities for this film?
I went a little more, I think, macro. I sort of mentioned earlier to make the story its own thing. Like this sort of feels like a grafted on part 2, or not an epilogue, but sort of like and it wasn't that I was bored. I was just, watching it. It takes a while to sort of happen. And I mean, the other thing was a bit of I don't want to call it a slow burn because there wasn't really anything burning about it, but it was before you realize you were enjoying it, you're sort of just along for the ride. This one, I thought, I feel like I've been there. I've just watched the last one. So it didn't really feel like its own story to me. It just, as I said, it felt, and it wasn't a carbon copy, but it did feel sort of a lot of the same.
An assembly of
sort of
parts.
Kind of.
And it's funny, actually, because this actually has a bit of, there's an arc here. He has, again, missed opportunities. That, did you ever think, wow, this guy's trying to deal with the passing of his dad, this force in his life? I didn't feel that. Like, you almost have to be reminded that the father just died. If you're just watching the movie, you kind of forget about it because I don't think the movie really cared about it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's a few shots of the hat and the chair and that kind of thing, but it doesn't feel like it just happened the week before. That his absence is acknowledged, but it doesn't feel recent. I guess
it doesn't feel the reason their whole Christmas plans changed on a dime.
Yeah.
We remember that's the whole impetus for them going back to the town and him having all these experiences is his dad passed. And the whole reason you have a million like Christmas miracles. Like, honest to God, whereas the other movie, it's the reverse. There are no Christmas miracles. Yeah. He gets the gun, he does shoot his eye out. Or, almost. Yeah. Almost. And he's the reason why there is no turkey dinner. Heck, they even walk away from that. Again, that could have been something done with the casseroles, where they get stuck with yet another casserole. That would have been a cool callback. They could have set up those casseroles and the kids just looking forward to I don't care. I just can't wait to Christmas so I don't have to eat another casserole. Nope.
Yeah.
Missed opportunities.
I mean, they were kind of interestingly gross looking, but, this big chunks of tuna and berries and things like that. But, I mean, a couple of the other things too were I thought this would be, I thought one of the problems and one of the reasons why it felt so similar to the last one is it's the same guy narrating. The first one was the son narrating about the father. Might it not have been a more interesting idea for this son to be narrating about Ralphie, for Mark to be narrating about Ralphie? Maybe it's violating the whole spirit of the thing by suggesting that, but I thought a different point, and maybe that's why the kids and the adults feel different than they did in that first one. So that I thought that would have been kind of an interesting. This is how my father started writing, or something like that. I mean, it's just a.
But I think though, and the other, I want to on that. That is goes to the heart of the problem of the whole movie. It is really the story of how he becomes the guy who wrote the better movie.
Yeah.
And you never know that. You never really know that. That isn't part of the driving force. And it's funny actually, because it tries to pull a fast one. The first movie is not about his idea of his father. It isn't. It's well, he has ideas about his father, his mother, the bully, the other kids, his teacher. He has all kinds of ideas, all tied together by he wants a fucking gun.
Yeah.
Here, it's like they're trying to copy that without the through line. You know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like I said, it's just sort of spitballing, but if you go from one thing to the other, you want to sort of change it up somehow, change the tone, destroy something and, make somebody build it up again. In this case, it's the family's changed its form a little bit, and then the other thing, the third thing I just said is to make the kids a little more well-rounded. Cause I didn't
childlike.
they were like the kids in Vacation, essentially, or the later vacation movies, I should say. They're just sort of, there. And there's a kind of like one line that Mark said, he kind of goes, "We're building a snowman." And I just thought, oh, what a drippy kid, but
there's only one moment where I'm like, that feels real. Not the lame, you're not making a snowball, right? And then they have a snowball fight, which is such another standard Christmas movie bit, but where he's staring at the guy whose hand is stuck in the jar. Slack-jawed, he could almost be drooling. And I'm like, here's the moment where he really, his name is, bear with me. Oh my goodness. Where is it? River Drosh plays, Mark. And that's where it's like, wow, that's a real kid. He looks like a real kid, doing exactly what a real kid would do. And the mother is behaving like it. Don't stare. It's impolite to stare. And it's like you have only a couple of those moments where it feels like a real parent and a real child. Previous movie, impossible to compare the two because it's cooked right into this film. The other one where you always feel like, yeah, that's a real kid. That's a grown-ass adult. All the time,
Yeah, there's another cool moment when he was in the bar and the buddy who owns the bar, Flick, asks him he goes, "Hey kid, you want a 10 bar?" And there's a genuine moment where the kid goes, "What?
I'm 12 or 8 or whatever the hell he was."
Yeah, and I felt that like if I was that'd be the coolest thing. He's got the gun with the drinks and. He gets a tip and everything, and I thought that was kind of a neat.
And yes, in a slight bit of progress from the previous film, there is while there's only one black person in this film, versus I believe 2 in the earlier one, this one gets to say a line.
Yes,
1. That's enough for 2022 North America to handle. Yeah, exactly. Diversity, check.
Do we qualify for a grant? And it's so much so that I expected something to happen with that character because the way they framed it, it's almost like, okay, what's going? There's a language to film, right? If they show a parked car, it's probably going to explode. If somebody coughs, they've got tuberculosis, those kinds of things. And they frame this guy in such a way that you think, okay, what's going to happen here? And nothing. Well, it's just he has. And
maybe this is a perfect time for me to rant a little about craft. This film is as generic as possible. Generic shots. Generic moments, mistakes, and again, it's a low budget film. They're not in Sofia, Bulgaria because that was the only place we could get the location. They're there because the producers could only cobble together so much money. It was cheaper to fly in all these actors and shoot it there. But there's a perfect example of how craft, we're not talking the writing or it's there's a whole bunch of things going on there. And in this film, it is, yeah, they're making a movie. They're making a movie, doing the basics. You can almost imagine on set, sure, center frame, I don't care. Let's print it, although no one prints anymore. And this is one of the reasons why I was like, oh, we got to get rid of the discussion of craft. If it's Marvel, there's certain things that happen in every Marvel movie. I expect all the acting to be solid. They're at the top tier, hundreds of millions of dollars being spent. It's all great. I mean, it has a certain style that we've now become so used to. It's unworthy of commentary. Everyone's kind of scenery chewing and big and loud. And, oh, if they're sad, they're really sad. And if they're happy, they're like, it's just everything's extremes, right? Everything's at 11. Or it's the other extreme, and it's the cinematography super dark, or it's, we're doing comedy super bright. But there's nothing where you're going, it's all very action oriented, but there's nothing where you're going, wow, I'm really seeing how cinematography has a real effect on how I am perceiving this whole film. And then you get A Christmas Story where it's like so against the grain in so many ways, but so fits that I'm like, well, this is why you want to talk about craft. Because as we discussed last week, and as we did not see in this one, although I got to admit, they did a pretty good job with the cars. They all looked like wrecks. Nothing looked too shiny or anything.
No.
But it's still kind of the people are all very, in Higbee's are, kind of there's still a sort of hue to everything, that, it's a period film. We got to make them look beautiful or whatever. But even mistakes like that, the center framing, it's like, well, this obviously is important. That's a thing. Like you said, there's a vocabulary, there's method to the madness. And here it's like, just do that, sure. I don't care.
Yeah.
And that's how you feel with this film, that Peter Billingsley cared about it. I'm not saying that the, is it Cadis? Cadis, yeah, Clay Cadis, a long time animator, got his first really big directing break in Angry Birds. That classic.
Yes.
Obviously wants to break into live action direction. But yeah, Billingsley cares about this project. Everyone else, I think, was just doing their job, and it looks it. It feels it. It's got standard comedy lighting. Nothing feels purposeful, like you notice only when you think about it with A Christmas Story. Because A Christmas Story, you can go through the whole film and kind of go, just go, wow, what a great movie. And then you start asking questions about it. It's like, God damn, they thought about everything to get to the point, which leads me to this question, Jim. What was the point of this film?
Yeah, the perfect Christmas is the best one. Ain't family great? It's quite a different different question, or it's a different. It would be a.
Well,
different
we're in
answer,
the meaning now. Like what was the meaning of this film? Like, what is the point to this flick?
I think. Yeah, that's a tricky one because they don't really I would normally say it's about the son taking over for the father, but they do talk about that a bit, but they don't really follow through necessarily. You know, the changing form of the family, or then as we all go through. Yeah, it doesn't quite achieve that. I
Well,
don't
in
think.
part, I think now some of that I think is because the father was never a storyteller, and therefore he's taking over the mantle. You know, it's
Yeah,
like, yeah, that
yeah,
wasn't. I mean, if he was like, I can now take the mantle of a swearer like my old man was, then you'd be like, he's wow, you can
yeah,
swear a
yeah.
lot.
There's a little bit of attention paid to the notion of it's the thought that
Yeah,
counts, which they sort of
which they
disown
and
at various points.
undermine at the end by, oh,
Yes, yeah,
apparently there's great gifts here. You know,
yeah, yeah, yeah. And they would have all bought the kids the same things. Well, and that's the thing, I guess, is that the grandfather died. Old man Parker died before he had a chance to compare note. Don't get the kids a sled because I already did, etc., etc. You know, the mom goes down to the basement, finds the gifts. What a surprise! Everybody gets what they want
yeah.
again. Yeah, what a stroke of luck, and everything like it's down to the
Christmas
gift.
miracle.
Christmas miracle. I guess it is
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, I can't remember what the final shot was. It ended kind of the Christmas story itself ended kind of abruptly,
Yeah.
like he's just talking about shooting animals from the hip, and then literally
Yeah.
it ends. But the with his new gun, you know, play acting and all that kind of thing. But this one, yeah, I
No,
guess it's
it
sort of
ends.
like,
It ends. The first one ends with the that great shot through the window of the Chinese restaurant because Christmas was a disaster, and there's parents laughing about it.
yes,
Which
yeah,
is the
yeah,
cue to the kids that it's still okay. Which I thought's a
yeah, yeah.
great
But
moment. This one,
this one,
it's
yeah,
all just it's a. Whereas the first movie is almost like the anti-Christmas Christmas movie.
mm,
Things work out because they're a fail. Here it's like, oh, you know what? Because you're good. It's all one Christmas miracle after another. The Christmas call that your life has been changed through one obituary, and
yes,
that man reaching from the grave gets all the kids the gifts they want, and it's
mm.
there are like it's almost like there are no stakes to this film. You know?
Yeah, yeah. That's actually that's the other thing I was thinking that I hadn't articulated yet is that the stakes don't seem as the same anyway for this.
I
one.
mean,
Yeah.
that said, and again, I think there's hints of meaning here. One of the great moments right near the end, and another missed opportunity. The missed opportunities list 3 wasn't enough for me, but they could have really explored it a little deeper. That idea of no, we had our deal. Like he's taken a year off of work during stagflation. He's taken that year off of work. That was the deal he made with his wife. You become a professional writer. And that I really loved that moment where he's kind of like because there's this weird sort of, again, he's the child. He's a lot more childish than he should be. But okay, if that's the thing that he's got to grow up and become more of a father, here's a nice moment. Like that's almost like one revision of the script. Because this script did change a lot, I think. There's the story by Billingsley and Nick Schenk, and then the Nick Schenk and Clay
I saw that.
actually wrote the script, and then Cadis directed it. So there are layers. Oh, excuse me, terrible belch. There are layers here, and you almost want to kind of go through script revisions to kind of see, hey, was there what else was going on? Was there a more interesting ideas? Because, but I loved that moment, which means I obviously, I was interested enough in these characters. They were sympathetic enough. They weren't cruel or anything, where I'm like, kind of, oh, I feel for her and I respect him more as a character, because he's like, hey, we made a deal, and that she's trying to kind of, well, maybe, I loved that adult moment.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's a good point. Yeah. How that sort of echoed the first one where they actually had roles. And things like that.
Yeah. That there was something going on. And again, here's what could have been very exciting and would have been a great through line would have made both movies different, but connected. Stick with the same narrator. Sure. What the hell? Why not? But as he is observing his children, but that they're obviously having their own lives, just as the parents did. And so it's no longer just, he's involved with his kids, but he's also involved with his wife and him trying to become a writer, and his mom, and all the dynamics going on there. And you can have a lot of the same techniques, let's say, but that the kids, well, they're there and they're having their own lives, but we're not seeing that. We're never directly involved in it. We never cut to, because that's one thing that the first film did really well. Dad comes home. We never follow him into the basement. We never, they do such a good job of sticking to that point of view. Well, they could have done the same thing here, where all of a sudden it's like, but we still see these people having stuff to do, a la Abed, maybe not delivering a baby, counseling a family and delivering a baby, a la Abed, but that idea that they have other lives and they feel real. These kids feel real. And even that moment of a kid coming home crying and trying to figure it out and hear it from that kid's point of view, but that father kind of go, okay, how do I deal with this now while I'm managing this and I'm managing that? Parenthood, although it had multiple points of view, I think it did a great job of that. Actually, it did a really good job of that.
It's been a while since I've seen that one.
Might be a does it hold up?
Yeah.
I'll have to put that on the list. Where is the meaning here? Like, other than the missed opportunity about some acknowledgement of the social world that they're living in. I can't say it has any, or let's say any of its meaning is such mushy pablum. Oh, Christmas does turn out to be wonderful. The thought does count. Look, you try and you put yourself out there. Like, it's about a writer discovering his own voice. Or it could have been. It could have been that idea of voice. But no. Like, do you come away with going, wow, I learned about someone discovering their real voice? Not
that was almost like a byproduct.
Yeah. But you got to kind of wonder, is there somewhere deep in the multiple versions of this script developed for years that you're like, wow, that's a through line,
Yeah. I think, there's probably a little element.
Like a kindly publisher going, listen, I get 1 million of you. I'm still kind of weirded out that you're in my office. But listen, this is, I see Asimov, bling, Herbert, and McCaffrey. Although she wasn't a big deal in the 70s, so I don't know where she came in. She was writing then, but,
Yeah.
Dragon Riders of Pern was more a late 70s, early. I might have been a fan of all these writers that kind of popped up in his.
Nothing wrong with that.
But you just listen, I see all these people in here, but I couldn't tell who you are from this.
Yeah. Yeah.
All of a sudden you got a fucking movie. You got a reason to be there, that is more adult.
Yeah.
Peter Billingsley, the child, Ralphie, can just want a BB gun because he's 8 and he lives in a world where this will make his life perfect. A grown-ass adult wants to be a writer, totally reasonable, but it better be a more sophisticated journey than we saw. Of getting a Christmas call, like out of, and even the brother returning, out of It's a Wonderful Life, the successful brother who is not and it's like, really? A call from the publisher, from the local newspaper.
Oh, he's working Christmas.
Calling a writer. Did you get a lot of calls from even local newspaper publishers on holidays?
Well,
unless it was, I'm paying you only this because you didn't give me 500 words, you gave me 495.
Well, the whole and he's got an unrealistic expectation. He the even his depiction or his fantasy of the Pulitzer Awards, they're throwing roses at him, and it's almost like the Academy Awards, and that he thinks he can hand in 2,000-page manuscript, and that's cool. It's not cool, it's
one of the great gags that kind of doesn't work because the rest of the scene isn't working was the whole, I know it seems like it doesn't go anywhere, but that's saved for the sequel. Which was funny.
And I think
honest and
at one point they have
funny.
A copy of the book, and it's like it's like 18 inches high. No, it's in terms of meaning or message, I suspect there's a little element, even though that's probably me reading into it. That old adage, what is it? Man plans, God laughs, kind of thing. There's some, in that sort of chase for the perfect Christmas. But Christ, I'm sick of perfect Christmas as a hook. There's somebody really striving for it. It's just so tiring.
Well, and I think that's what hurts. What makes this a film that's passable with funny moments. But yeah, I can't. Other than a few funny moments and a few characters that maybe you like, strictly because you liked their predecessor, in the previous movie. So I don't detest these people. I don't not care about. I can't say I really care about the children. So
yeah.
Do I? I by the end of it, I'm like, I've seen this Christmas movie before. Oh, and that one and that one. I've seen the 8 Christmas movies this is trying to reference before. Much better done. Oh, well. Yeah. What do you do? Jim, I think this is a time where we usually ask our live audience and our replay audience to like, subscribe, and don't forget to ringy-ding that bell.
Ninja-like reach very quietly for my bell.
Folks, if you can, please please subscribe. It does help our channel more than you know. Of course, if you have, because you are seeing this, we're not doing it live tonight, please comment in the description below. Would love to hear what you took away from this film. What were some of your best moments? Heck, I want to know, asking you, the viewer, what some of your favorite Christmas films are. But first, let's. Are we giving Clay Cadis a pass or a fail on this one?
Yeah, I find it hard to fail outright. I'll give it a C. That's pretty low for me, but yeah, I'll give it a C. I mean, it's watchable. It's fine probably if you have small children, not too small, but small. Watch it with them. But it's fine. It's okay, but it's not gonna. Yeah, it's not gonna. I think DMG asked, "Would this be a classic? Would this ever be considered a classic?" And I would say no.
Good Lord, no. Yeah, no, I agree with DMG on the like a deflated balloon. I the best I could do, Jim, because by the end of it, I'm still like kind of semi-interested in how it works out for Ralphie and Sandy, and even Julie Haggerty's performance of Mrs. Parker, where I'm like, well, that's a directional choice. It's like, I did not like the way she was portrayed in this film.
No?
Did not seem to fit the character in the previous film. That's it. So the best I could give it is a C-, but I can't. It's barely a pass. It's okay, we're going to advance you to the next grade. I can't. To keep you back would be just mean-spiritedness, and you ain't that bad a kid. off to grade 5. Hopefully somebody will connect with you and you'll do better later. Final thoughts.
I liked the fact that they stuck with where they could, stuck with the original cast, the brother, the friends, the bully, even the bully's sidekick makes a really quick visit, and it's the same dude. And I thought that was a real interesting, like a real nice effort to sort of bring the gang back together again. If you cut it, you would have on your hands a Christmas Boyhood, like a la Richard Linklater. If you cut it all into one movie, just pretend you shot it all at different, 40 years apart. But and then the other thing too is I don't know. This is probably just me. There was a segment where Ralphie was in jail and he was pretending that his family, he was sort of off in his fantasy world. His family came to visit, and his son was all of a sudden this sort of moody English rocker whose name is Mark. And I thought, is this a shout out to Mark Allman from Soft Cell and Tainted Love? Oh. But anyway, that was my, because it's totally like this, you had the whole kind of thing going. And
interesting cut.
Yeah. So that was just my very, probably just me.
Sandy looked like she was ready for her audition to be Cruella de Vil.
Yes,
and then
the eye on the other one.
poor Julie, poor little Julie, who's the Cyclops.
So those are my final thoughts. But yeah, good effort to get the old cast back together.
Myself. One of the, and this just kind of dawned on me even as I was about to, as I was looking down in my notes. One of the times I did laugh out loud, not uproariously, but it's funny. Mark broke his arm, which is, I'm not even sure they intended it, but I'm like, that's a great kid line. To quote a friend of the show, who one of his brothers, when something happened that was due to his brother's behavior, it got broke. That was always the kid's line when they broke something. Well, it got broke. There's no human being connected to the activity. And here's the father going, Mark broke. Mark broke his arm. It's like, but. And here is back to the missed opportunity. Imagine John Hughes directing this film. He would not have just done The Eye Opens. This is where camera and music and performance all come together. Mark broke his arm. It would have cut and it would zoomed in on an awesome cue, an awesome audio cue. Would have zoomed in on the eye, and all of a sudden the eye opens on a music cue. That's a John Hughes move, and that they didn't do that. And you don't need you don't need 80s music licensing prices, to have made that work. And that is going back to my rant about craft and how this one doesn't have the filmmaking craft. Yeah, the sets are great. Those, you know what? But you can't count on the crew to come up with that storytelling craft, that moment, like that idea that's got to come from an actor, a director, an editor even. Says, "Oh, here's a moment here. This is a moment that just needs a little spice." And there's no spice there, but it was a moment that I kind of laughed, and it could have been a bigger laugh. They could have just, oh yeah. Anyway, sits down, zoom into her, push into her, and then Mark broke his arm. It's like, and also they could have ran with that. Mark broke his arm. That, not a passive voice, but literally like, well, he did something. No, you grown ass adults dared each other into something stupid. You want to do that movie? Yeah. Ralphie goes back to his hometown without his family. Another good movie there. Then they could behave like idiots because he doesn't have his kids around. Yeah. Yeah.
Don't give him ideas.
That's all we've got here, Jim. Ideas. Free ideas for the dozens upon dozens of people who do subscribe and watch our stuff. Sometimes several dozen. And as we've gone through the statistics, in 2 occasions, or actually 4 occasions, thousands of dozens. And we appreciate every view. So, of course, folks, what are we watching next week? Oh my goodness, I can't believe I almost, you know what? The great thing about editing Rob will put this in the right spot. So, where was I, Jim? Yes. What are we? It's that time. What are we watching next week?
If the planets align and we can get ourselves out to the theater, we're going to be going to see Steven Spielberg's latest, The Fabelmans.
Yes, we are.
That's for next Sunday.
Next Sunday. Not sure if it's going to be live. We may do live to tape one more time. I really want to be 100% familiar with this system. With Riverside and everything, but we'll do our best to put it out live because there's something about the best chat on the internet being involved with our little show here.
Indeed.
Indeed,
yeah.
Well, on that wonderful note, Mr. Chaboyko, thank you very much. Great show. Everybody out there who's watching this in replay land and video land, thank you very much for chiming in. Of course, all our links to follow us is in the description. Link to our last show where we did talk about A Christmas Story, although we spent half this show talking about A Christmas Story. It will be in the description. And what else? I think that's about it, eh? Oh, we do have an audio podcast. Links to all of the platforms down in the description. So, everyone, thank you all very much, and I guess we'll wave goodbye now. Bye-bye, everybody.
See you later.
All righty. Well, that wasn't too bad, eh?